name. So please, you can join if for any reason. Okay, I think we are live now on YouTube. All right, so let's continue. So welcome to tonight's section. It's going to be a really great time to learn together. Tonight we are unlocking the power of research analysis with SPSS. So you are going to learn how to analyze data for your thesis, for your projects, your dissertation, or even for your professional project, even if you're a beginner. So from the form you filled, we found out that a good number of you are just getting started with SPSS. And if you already experienced using SPSS, you will still find some part of the section, especially tomorrow, very insightful. But tonight we are going to lay foundation for those who have very little experience and for those who have no experience at all. Okay, so what is the key agenda for tonight? First, we are going to, not necessarily tonight, but for the entire program, we're going to see a kind of introduction to research analysis to understand the basics of research and how to draw insight from data. Also look at how to get more out of SPSS. Some of the practical tips to use SPSS more effectively for your analysis. And then we are also going to look at practical data analysis, hands-on session on how to use SPSS. So I'll walk you through the interface, get really comfortable and familiar with the interface so you can use the tool very effectively. And by tomorrow, we're going to look at how you can leverage data to write better reports in your projects. Now, before we get into tonight's session, I need to do a brief introduction about myself. My name is Chris Aoke, and I'm a data analyst, a software engineer, and a tech educator. I have a deep passion for building innovative startups, and Wisebreed Analytics is one of the startups that we are currently building. We've been in business for a very long time, and we've impacted lives so many, which some of them you might hear their testimonials much later. I'm also an author. I published my first book last year and currently working on my second book, which I may talk about much later. I started my journey in data in April of 2018, which later on I expanded into software engineering and eventually found my way back to data. At the moment, I'm currently expanding my expertise in analytics data engineering, where I focus mainly on helping businesses, institutions build data pipeline for analysis, product development, and for driving innovation and growth with data. That's just a brief about me. We'll get to know more as we continue. So let's look at research analysis. I mean, most of you on this call will already know what research analysis is, but I still want to buttress on it a bit. Now, research analysis is nothing but the process of collecting, organizing, and interpreting data to answer research questions. It's all about the data aspect of research. Now, one of the things that I, as a researcher, and most of my colleagues do struggle with, maybe I don't struggle with it any longer because I've built expertise in it. It is not the writing part of research that is the hardest. It is making sense of the data. And it is the data or the analysis of your research that really validates or gives credibility to your work. So, key things you need to know about research analysis is that with good knowledge of research analysis, it helps you to turn data, raw data, into meaningful insights. With good data analysis, it also helps you to confirm or reject your hypothesis. Those, assumptions you make in the course of working on a project. Okay. And it is research analysis is the basis for making evidence-based conclusions. Without it, any other thing you are saying, it's an assumption or something that is based on guess. So why does research and data analysis matter? Number one, strong research requires strong data analysis. I've worked with a couple of institutions and even researchers from World Health Organization and a couple of them. And one of the things I've realized with my years of experience is that there is no research without strong data. The quality and credibility of any research is dependent on the quality of the data analysis, which also falls to the nature of the data and the analysis itself, and most importantly, the ability to tell story and interpret that data effectively. And these are some of the things you're going to be learning throughout this section. With poor analysis, your conclusions will be very weak. So research analysis helps you to identify trends, be able to look out for patterns and draw relationship between the data points you have in your research. That is why if you don't have a very strong basis in research analysis, you need to pay attention to tonight's and tomorrow's session. Also, research analysis, like I said before, helps to add credibility to your thesis, to your dissertation, and to your project. And it guides decision making and policy recommendation and makes it really effectively. So it matters so much that you get grounded in research analysis, especially using SPSS. There are several tools in the marketplace, but as we continue, you know why SPSS seems to stand out, especially for those who are either getting started or want to take their research to the next level. If you look forward to publishing on impact factor journals, then you must pay attention to your research and data analysis. So if I would say data analysis is the anchor of every great research project. If you disagree with me, you can drop it in the chat box. But I think this is the truth. Data analysis is the core or anchor of every great research project. So, what is SPSS? You've got to know what it is. And I think for most of you, this might not be your first time of getting in touch with the tool. But what does it stand for? What it stands for, it's quite irrelevant as much as what it does for you. SPSS stands for Statistical Package for the Social Sciences. But just by going with that meaning, you might think that SPSS is an exclusive reserved tool for those in social sciences, but it's not. SPSS is a tool that is used across several domains, across several industries, across different research institutions. And that for several reasons. Number one, SPSS has user-friendly interface for analyzing research data, and it is widely used in the university, in research institutes, in industry, and it is perfect for beginners. I'm a programmer, I'm a software engineer. I work with tools like R, I work with tools like Python, I work with tools like SQL, Power BI, and several others. And I can tell you, for any beginner getting started with quality data analysis, the go-to tool is SPSS because it has a very good intuitive interface that makes room for those who don't have basis in programming to really get started and get strong. So it's perfect for beginners, it's perfect for intermediates, it's perfect for any level of research work you are doing. And it's quite useful in several domains, in health, in education, in agriculture, in veterinary medicine, in social sciences. Think about any area at all that SPSS is not in use. Even in economics, yes, economics, they might be using a tool called eView, but I've worked on projects from economics department that was done with SPSS. So in as much as there are some departments that have or that has some tools that are more like exclusive to them, SPSS is a multi-purpose tool, and you must learn how to use it effectively. All right? Now, why should you choose SPSS for research? Number one, SPSS is easy to learn. It is easy to learn and it is easy to use. SPSS helps to save you time compared to manual calculation. I mean, gone are those days. I remember back in the days when we were in school in University of Nigeria in Suka. So my supervisor then wants you to do some of your calculations manually. And it was really difficult. But thank God, I mean, later on, he got to realize how powerful these tools are and how much prone we are to errors when we resort to manual calculation. So SPSS doesn't just allow you to avoid getting into errors, but it also saves you enough time. And one good thing I've realized with SPSS, I worked on a data set early this year from the US, one of the universities in the US, and it was from the child health related whatever, from a very public large data set, and SPSS was able to handle it effectively. Normally, I would have resort to Python or R programming, but I did it with SPSS because I needed something really fast, and the client needed a response as quickly as possible. So SPSS helps you to handle large data set with ease. I mean, with ease. Unlike Excel, that when it goes beyond a number of certain rows, everything begins to lag, not for SPSS. SPSS also provides you professional output for research, for reports, and for publication. Okay. In the older version of SPSS, the charts are usually clunky and doesn't really look good. But things have changed. Things have been improved now. The newer versions and even the ones we might be working with, you see the difference, working with such tool. So tonight, like I said, is going to be really hands-on, and I may pause at some point to catch up with those who are just joining us. And we're going to go through the SPSS practical walkthrough. So first, we will need to launch the application for those who already have it installed in their PC. So we'll go through the interface, try to understand how the tool is designed and how to get data into SPSS. We will also look at how to enter data, the different views in SPSS. And I just want you to really get comfortable using this awesome tool called SPSS. All right, so let's do a kind of housewarming. And I want to hear from those who are just joining us. Please, if you have any question at this point, kindly raise your hand. Let me attend to that, and then we can continue the session. Yes, any question at this point? Like I promised, the session is going to be really hands-on. So if you have any question, please go ahead and raise your hand and you'll be allowed to speak. No question yet. Okay, so how many of us? Okay, Alison, kindly go ahead with your question.
Okay, good evening, sir, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Okay, my question is, I just want to understand if, because I've heard of different tools that can be used for data analysis, I would like to know if SPSS can actually do everything that the others can do, or it has its own limitations. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Of course, SPSS has its own limitation. I'm not saying that SPSS can do everything. Like I said, I use several tools, and there are reasons why I do so. Do you understand? So using other tools means that SPSS is not ideal for those tasks. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other question as to that, to what we've touched on so far? Okay, so since we have no other question, let's launch the application. And please, if you don't have SPSS installed in your PC, a link to a guide has been sent into the WhatsApp group. Kindly access the link and you know, go through the guide and install SPSS. Even if you are only going to watch tonight, after tonight, the record will be on YouTube for replay. So you can go through it, practice, and so that tomorrow you can join us in the subsequent sections we're going to have. All right, so let's relaunch. Let's see the application we are going to be working with. So this is the SPSS application. When you launch SPSS, it shows you this interface. Okay, it shows you this particular, sorry. So it shows you this interface. So this is more like the welcome window. Okay, depending on the version you are using, but for all of them, you always have this welcome window. So, and there are a couple of things here. Number one, you see this new files. Okay, you see this new files, new data set. So if you just want to get started with a new data set, you can click on that. New database query. We'll touch on that much later. And for this area, there are several modules that are here that you can use. But as a beginner, you may not have so much to do here. And for the recent file area, where you see the recent files, okay, you can click here, or some, if you started working, you're going to see the files that you've worked on here. All right. Now, if you want to learn how to use SPSS, there's also a guide. So each of these are just basic guides to help you understand how the tool really works. Is that okay? Then when you look at this point, okay, when you look at this point, this particular area, it says do not show this dialog in the future. So if you check this box now and click OK, it means that when next you are launching your SPSS, you won't be able to see this again. But I always like to say this because at some point it can be useful. All right. So I'm going to uncheck it and click OK, or just cancel it off the screen. So by default, when you load your SPSS, first it opens up to this window, okay? And this window, we call it the data view, as you can see at the bottom. Okay, so the first view, or the section you are looking at right now, it's the data view. So I'm going to come to the data view, and I'll also touch on what both of them does, the data view and the variable view. Okay. Then if you look at the top, you will see this particular SPSS file. By default, it has this name, untitled. So we've not saved it yet. When we save it, we can give it a name of our choice. So this is the title bar of the file. So this area is the title bar. Sorry. So this area, so you can call it the title bar. Then for this is the menu bar. This particular area where you have the several menu. Okay, that a tab menu or just menu. So we'll have the file, we'll have edit, we'll have view, we'll have data, we'll have transform, and each of them, they have their unique use cases. So this is the title bar, the topmost part, the title bar, the menu bar, or the tab menus. Okay, so these are the menu. Now, below that is the toolbar. So this is where we call the toolbar. Okay, this is the toolbar. So if I circle this, so we can just give it a name, toolbar. So toolbar. So this one is the menu bar. So I'm just going to also circle it, call it the menu bar. I believe this is clear. Menu or menu tabs. Okay. Then here is the title bar. This particular up, it's the title bar. So I'm just giving them that name so that you take note of them. The title, sorry, title. Okay, so that's the title section of the application. So we're going to go through each of this much later, maybe not all of them one by one, but the most important ones we're going to go through. Now, I want you to know that XPSS, it's like a spreadsheet. If you know Microsoft Excel, which is a product of Microsoft, it's a spreadsheet. And what is a spreadsheet? A spreadsheet is simply an application that stores data in tables or in columns and rows. So what we call the columns is the vertical parts. Okay, so these are the columns, right? So if you go to Microsoft Excel, you also find something like this. So these are the columns, all right? These are the columns, and that's where you see the data. Then for the horizontal part, these are the rows, okay? This is what we call the rows and the columns. Is that okay? So this is a spreadsheet that allows us to store data in tables. But like I said, there's a unique way that SPSS comes in, and which is it comes with a data view and a variable view. Both of them has their unique cases. Now, what's the function of the data view? The data view, as the name goes, it's where you enter your data, and we're going to see it hands-on tonight how that is done. In the data view, you enter the data. In the variable view, you define your variable. So the question is, what is a variable? A variable simply is anything that you can measure or observe. So an example or that is liable to change. An example is the age of people. It's a variable. The height of students, the length of a particular thing. So those are all variable names, class, those are all variables. So if you are working on a data project, I believe you have variables, and variables comes of different types. And we might not touch on all of that tonight, but much later. So we have within the variable view, this is where you define your variable. You give them the names. Now, whatever you define as your variable is going to serve as the column, the name of your column in the data view. So within the variable view, you define the variable. And then within the data view, you enter the data for that particular variable. And like I said, here in the variable view, after defining the variable, when you move to the data view, you will see the variable as the column name. So let's see how it works. So let's begin with a hypothetical questionnaire. And I think I have one here. This is not hypothetical. This is a real project. Okay. So let's say that you have this project, healthcare facility details. So now this is a variable in this particular data set. This is a variable. The name of the healthcare facility is a variable. Type of the healthcare facility is also a variable. Then we'll come to different sections. This one is social demographic detail of the respondent. We'll have the age of the child. We have sex of the child, position of the child in the family, the religion, ethnicity, and several other things. And I also want to take this opportunity to shout out to my northern friends. I think a couple of you are on this call. Thank you so much for showing up in today's webinar. Maybe much later I will spend more time. I mean, a good number of them are on the call, and I'm so happy for that. So This is a variable. So we are going to see how we can just model this real world case scenario to work on the data. So maybe we can ignore this part. Now, the reason I want to ignore it is just to save time. Since this is more like a demonstration, I just want to start from here. So let's assume that you have a questionnaire and you want to enter the data in SPSS. I'm going to show you an alternative way of entering data. Okay. But first, let's go with what is more general and basic, which is entering directly in SPSS. So here, the social demographic detail is what we want to enter. So the first thing is age of the child. So I'm going to go to SPSS. Now we need to define all those variables in the variable view. Now we'll explain what each of these represents. Is that okay? So if you have your SPSS and you have it launched, you can do this with me. Now there are certain rules that you must follow anytime you are naming your columns or naming your variable with SPSS variable view. Number one, there must not be any space between the name of your variable if that name of your variable is more than one word. So if you have the name of a variable that is more than one word, you must not you must not give space between the words. You can only use underscore to separate the words. And also, you cannot start the name of your variable with a number. These are rules. Now, every tool you are going to use have what is called syntax. That is the particular rule that governs how instructions are handled. One of the syntax in naming your variable in SPSS is that SPSS won't allow you have spaces between the names of your variable. Okay, and you can't start it with a number, and you can't have other special characters except the underscore. You know, underscore is a special character, but you can it can only allow you to use underscore either at the beginning or in between the words that make up the name of your variable. So in our case, we have age of the child. Actually, if I'm to code this into SPSS, I'm not going to use age of the child. Age is enough. Okay, so I'll just write age. So, so I'll come here and I'll just type age. So this is the age column. And for type here, by default, as soon as you type a particular name here in the name column, it will populate most of the things here. But it is your duty as the one working with this tool to take time and fine tune things as you go. Now, the type here has to do with data type. Now, every data you know comes with a particular nature. So we have data that is numerical, and even in numerical data, we have the decimal, the ones that are in decimal points, and the ones that are whole numbers. And then we have text, or what is technically called string data type. Okay, and we have several others. But for IBM SPSS, if you want to see the different data types, so you can choose the one that matches the particular data that this column is going to be storing, you can click on these three dots and it will bring all these options. So you have numeric, if it is going to be number, okay, you have comma, which you might not have need of. You have date, if it's going to be date, you have string, you have currency and the rest of them. So for us, the age is going to be numeric, it's going to be number. Is that okay? So we could just click OK. Now you come to the next column, still under age, which has to do with how many characters can be allowed in that column. Like how many characters can be allowed. So since age, we are looking at children, and even if we are not looking at children, um, most likely our respondent may not get into 3 digits. So we can just keep it at most 2 digits number. Okay, so 2 digits, that's 2 characters. Age, it's not a variable that should be in decimal point. So we're going to change this to 0. So somebody cannot be 2.5 years old. It's either 2 years or 3 or any other, but not 2.5, or maybe 50.7 years old. Such is not obtainable for age. Then this is a very important point. It's called label. Now, what you do in this label column for any particular variable you are imputing is to describe what that column is all about. So in this case, it is age, sorry, age of the child, as you saw in the questionnaire, age of the child. For values, now, if you look at the questionnaire, if you are to enter this data, the first thing you do, I'm teaching you something I should have come much later to teach you. But the first thing you do when you are entering your data from a questionnaire to your SPSS is to code this categorical variable with numbers, represent them with numbers. So let me give you an example. Instead of just typing in 0 to 4 weeks for the first respondent, and maybe the second respondent ticked 5 to 8 weeks, and maybe another person ticked another 5 to 8 weeks, and the fourth one ticked 9 to 12 weeks, I would rather code them with numbers so that during my data entry in SPSS, it is going to be seamless. So let me give you an example. So we can code this with 1, 2, and 3. And then later on, when we come to this variable, we can define what 1 represents, what 2 represent, and what 3 represent. So I'm going to give you an example. So I'm not going to touch anything for now. For missing value, I'm going to leave everything as it is. Every other thing will just be left like this for now. I'll come back to this couple of things much later. So we can go for the next thing, which is sex. Okay, sex is not going to be numeric. It's either going to be a male or female, which is text. So we're going to change this to string. Okay, and for the weight, we can leave it by the default value, which is 8. Okay, this. Okay, so we can leave this at default value, which is 8. Now you can even reduce it. Female, it's just 6-letter words. So you can either reduce it to 6, which is the max it can be, right? And leave every other thing. The next thing we see in the questionnaire is position of the child. In that case, you can actually type in this, let's say, position in the family. Okay, in the family. So I could just put it this way. So you can see illegal character. Let me see. It seems there's something we did. Position. Okay. Underscore of underscore again. The family. Okay. So yeah. Position in the family is going to be a text. So we'll change this to numerics. And you can give more description to all of them. This place allows you to enter about 255 characters. So it gives you enough room to describe what each of these variables do. Now, let's go to the data view and see what has happened. So if you go now to data view, so you can see we have age as the first column, sex, which is the gender, as the second column, position of the child as the third column. And you can even expand this just to make it look better this way. So you have, so right now, you can now start entering, your code. So, but this is just more like the basics of the data view works. Let me repeat some of the things I've said. In the data view is where you enter the actual data for your analysis. In the variable view is where you define the variables or the names of your columns, right? And it's also in the variable view that you decide the nature of the data of each column. So for the age column, it's going to be numeric data type. For the sex column, is going to be a text or string data type. Position of the family is going to be string or text data type as well. And we can as well do all of that. So in coding this, male can be 1, female can be 0. Or you can even do it 1 and 2. It all depends. There's no good or bad. So long you have your code book where you know what each of those values represent. So that when it is time for you to, enter it in SPSS here, defining the value, you can be able to do that effectively. All right. So let's take some questions and we can continue. So let me know how many of us have questions yet? Yes. If you have any questions so far, let's know so that we can take questions. We want it to be as interactive as possible. Yes, no question yet. Okay. So so that's about
Sorry,
okay.
can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
so from the data view now, having seen what you've done, reflecting on the data view, that means the next row now, the number one will be for each questionnaire, the number two will be for the second questionnaire, the number three, each rows like that will be for each questionnaires, right?
That's for the data view, right?
Yes, for the data view.
Exactly, you are correct. So this will be the first questionnaire, second questionnaire, third questionnaire. But if, of course, you know that each questionnaire we have several columns depending on the variables you were able to capture during the design of your questionnaire. And of course, there are also a singular question in your questionnaire that can be splitted into several columns depending on how it was structured. Okay.
Okay.
So, but your question, your thought is correct. Each of this row represents each questionnaire that you are going to have. Now, for those experimental research, kindly mute. Those experimental research, yours doesn't require questionnaire. Let's say you did a lab work. All you just need to do is enter the results you've collected from your lab work according as you've collected it in their respective columns. And maybe tomorrow we might touch on that because most likely it will involve inferential statistics. All right. So that's how you enter. We can as well continue entering all of this religion, ethnicity, um, mother, mother's education level, and every other thing that you can see here in the social demographic detail. All
Hello.
right. So
Hello.
please, before you ask question, kindly raise your hand. I would have muted us, but I just wanted us to
Okay.
have a seamless ride. So if you have a question, kindly raise your hand and you'll be able to ask your question. So, Abdullah Waziri, please go ahead. Waziri, you've already unmuted before. Kindly unmute and ask.
All right. So does that mean that for the experiment, you can only enter your data directly without defining your variables, your data variables? If I get you well
No, no,
from
no,
the
no.
explanation.
No, 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 no. You also define it. If you don't define, kindly mute now. If you don't define your variables in the variable view, you won't know what each column represents here. Are you getting it? Let's say you've done a PCV instance and you have PCV1, PCV2, PCV3, and maybe you have maybe hemoglobin test. I'm just talking about for those either in pharmaceutical, biological, or health sciences. So this is where you enter those variables, okay? Then and define each of them. Okay. Then when you come here, you can now begin to enter the data. Let's say you worked on effect of malaria on children. I believe that somehow you might have collected their age, you might have collected some other social demographic details about them, and then of course you collected sample. I'm giving a hypothetical example. You collected samples of the blood, and then you went to the lab, did all your analysis, came with the results. You need to enter all the variables here, which are going to be your columns here, so that when you are entering the data, you know where which is to enter. So it gives you direction as to where which data point should be entered. Do you understand what Waziri? Okay. So someone had raised hand before. Abdullah, I think, is he out of the call? Okay. So since we do not have other questions, let's just continue. All right. So now that we've seen how to use the data view and what the data, the variable view, this is the variable view, what it does for us, and what the data view also helps us to do. Let's see, how else can you enter your data? Now, there's something I like to do, and I know maybe some of you that either have been using SPSS or you've been into research analysis for a while. Either you do that for clients or you do that on a personal project. Maybe you've tried this approach before. I like to leverage Microsoft Excel because it gives me some sort of flexibility for data entry. And when I'm done entering the data in Excel, I then import it to SPSS, where I now have to, all I need to do is to define the variable. Is that okay? So, how do you do that? I want to believe you have SPSS in your, you have Excel in your system. Now, for this particular data that we have here, I had already entered about 60 or so questionnaire in Microsoft Excel, just this section. And I did that for demonstration purpose. So just this particular section. So what I want to show you now is how do you do that in Excel? So let me open a new Excel workbook. So this is Microsoft Excel, okay? And you already coded your questionnaire. Remember how I told you to code your questionnaire? For each of these data points, you represent them with numbers, each of them. And you are not to do that randomly. You've got to know how you assign the value. So if you're using 1, 2, 3, just know that for age, 1 represents 0 to 4 weeks. 2 represent 5 to 8 weeks, and 3 represent 9 to 12 weeks. And for sex or the gender of the child, you can either code it 1 and 2, that's 1 for male, 2 for female, or 1 for male, 0 for female. Okay. And for position of the child in the family, you can code it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is 1 for first child, the second child in the house, and like that till you get to the 5th. And when it comes to religion, you can code it as 1, 2, 3, where 1 is Christianity, 2 for Islam, and 3 for traditional. Ethnicity, 1 for Yoruba, 2 for Igbo, 3 for Hausa, and then 4 for others. Now, this is where it becomes interesting. Assuming that in the course of your entering the data, you realize that most people did not just check others. They wrote down where they are coming from. Let's say Efik, Urobo, Shekiri. You know, what I'm mentioning the place I'm familiar with in Delta State. So I've visited a couple of those places. So let's say they mentioned where they are coming from, right? So you can either code everything outside of these three as orders, or if there's a repetition of some kind of location more often, you can also code them as, let's say, robo appeared multiple times in several data rows. You can code it as 4 and maybe others as 5. Or if you have a standard of just using these 3 ethnic groups in Nigeria, then every other ethnic group can be grouped as, so long they are not within Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa. Is that okay? So that's one way to approach it. And for this one, the format is the same: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one, just go that same way. For family structure, 1 and 2, 1 for monogamy, 2 for polygamy. Estimated monthly income range, you can do the same thing where 1 represents less than 30,000, 2 represent 30,000 to 50,000, 3 will represent 50,000 to 100,000, and 4 will be greater than 100,000. And this particular section B, you go the same way. Now, let me say this. Whenever you have, because it is not SPSS that decides how you design your questionnaire. The design of your questionnaire will determine how you enter your data in SPSS. Is that okay? So, assuming that you want to enter this as a variable, would you just write the entire question? I wouldn't do that. I will read this and shorten it in a way that I can understand. I believe you can hear me. I will shorten this in a way that I can understand. So I can say ante-care before delivery. Instead of saying, did you attend any antenatal care before delivery? So I can add the entire question because it describes what that particular variable is doing in the label column here. So I could just add, did you attend any antenatal care here? But when it comes to the variable name, that will be too long for a variable name. That will be too long for a variable name. So I'm not going to, I will shorten it here, but give the full description under label. Where this comes really handy is when you are now running the analysis, and we might see how it works, as we progress. Is that clear enough? So the same principle applies to every other thing. This one, where did you receive antenatal care? You don't need to write the entire question as your variable name. You can shorten it. Same thing applies to this one. Was it at this antenatal care facility? Referring to this. So you have this column, or the 3 variables. This one is going to be yes or no. If it's not either of yes or no, okay, it will be, a location where the respondent is allowed to impute. Okay, so that's about that. You use, like I was trying to demonstrate before, here in Microsoft Excel, you can enter the data, and when you are done, you save it and export. So what I usually do, I'm not teaching you Microsoft Excel. If you want to learn Microsoft Excel, you can enroll to any of Wisebreed Analytics program much later. But I'm just doing this for demonstration purpose. So using this same questionnaire, what you can do, each section, for instance, section A, which is the socio-demographic information of the respondent, you can come here and begin to enter each of them column by column. That each column here represents each variable. Each column here represents each variable. But one thing I like to do is to use color to separate them. So let me show you the finished project so that you see how it's more like looks like. So you can see here, I have the facility name and it's coded one. If you filter it, you see it's coded 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's see the questionnaire and see how many they are. You see A, B, C, that's C here, Polyclinic Enugu. The Good Shepherd Anglican, Good Shepherd Specialist Hospital, D, E, and everything is 8. Okay, so we coded each of them as 1, 2, 3, 4 to 8. Then type of health facility. As you will see in the questionnaire also, facility type. I didn't say type of facility, but facility type. Now, notice something. Okay, let me ask the general house so that we can be on the same page. What did you notice in the column names in Excel here? Can someone raise hand if you noticed anything in the column names against what I mentioned in SPSS? If you have an answer to my question, raise your hand. You noticed something in the column names. Ayo, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a change in color. The color for the facility name is different from the rest.
Okay, that's one. But there's something else I said about the variable names that it's not being obeyed here. I want someone else who is able to pick that. Ayo, you can take down your hand. Who else observed something? Okay, Maxwell, please go ahead.
Good evening. All there's no underscore. There's spacing in this one.
A round of applause for him. Please give him a round of applause with your favorite emoji. Okay. Yes, yes. Thank you so much. So that's the observation there, that the names here, they have spaces. So you'll be asking a question. So what will happen when we import this to SPSS? Do we need to start editing these variable names afresh, or we SPSS by default include the underscores? We'll find out as we continue. So whenever you are working with a questionnaire, to make it easy during your coding, it's always good to use colors to sectionize each part. So for instance, you see this first column, because it's in a different section, it has a different color. Then for this one, this is for sociodemographic of the respondent. It's in orange color. And as you continue, you see that of antenatal. As you continue, you see the other part. As you continue, I think this should be the last. Okay, yeah, that's the last. Okay. So it's always good you do this. And when you are done, you can then import it into SPSS. So I want to walk us through how to do the import. So I believe you are learning something tonight. Tomorrow we are going to go into more detail, but this night is just to lay the foundation. I'll provide you a data set, a real data set, but of course a smaller version of it just for practice, just so we can build strong muscle memory about what we are learning. All right. So now that we have this, I always encourage, if you are working with SPSS, always save your work. So let me show you how to save your work. Always save. I haven't saved it. If anything should happen to my PC or that it crashes now, I might lose this data, because right now, SPSS don't yet, I've not really observed SPSS having the ability to restore the previous work that is being done. Okay. So you go to file if you want to save, and then you see two options: save and save as. Save as you already know with other tools, is for saving new document or new files. Save is just to continue, saving. But you can as well use either of them to save, whether new file or an existing file. So if I click on save, it will bring up this. Okay. So here, file name, I'll give it a name of my choice. Let's say I say practice 5. Okay. I can allow space in this one. That's not a problem. And if you see save as, so it's going to save it as SPSS file. I can save it as Excel. I can save it as CSV. I can save it as any other file format here. But I want to leave it as SPSS. Okay. Next is to choose where you want the file to be saved. By default, it's bringing up the document folder. So I'm going to come here and choose, let's say I want to put it in downloads. So I'll click on downloads. There's nothing much to customize. All you need to do is to click on save and the file will be saved. Now, whenever you save, this particular window always show up. So you could just close it to say, tell you save content of output viewer to output 1. I'll say no, I don't want that. And that is off. So right now it is saved. If you look up here, it's no longer untitled. It's now showing practice file .sav. SAV is the extension to tell you that this is now SPSS. All right. So that is how to, save a file. Now let's look at how do you import a file into SPSS. And to do that, I'm going to send you a file so you can practice on your own. I called it demo SPSS. So let me put it in the group just so that all of us can follow along. Please kindly go to the group. I'm going to put it now in the group so that you can go to the group and access it. Demo SPSS. I want us to work on it together and let's see how to define variable in SPSS. So I'll give you like 1 minute to get the data downloaded. Maxwell, your hand is up. Do you have a question? Maxwell, do you have a question?
No. Sorry, it was a mistake.
All right, thank you. So I think our time is up, so you should have downloaded it. But if you are still struggling to download, it's a very light file, so it should be very easy to download, so long you're able to access your WhatsApp with your PC. If you can't access it, you can download it with your phone and quickly transfer it to your PC. So first, I'm going to open a new file, okay? Or if you don't want to open a new file, you could just go to file, but definitely you go to file. When you get to file, you see new, okay? You see data. Now, if you are using, let's say 2024 version of SPSS, especially those of you I guided on how to install the very latest version, you might see import there, okay? But for this version, that is also new version, you click on data, okay? Click on data and I'm coming. So go to open. So I've clicked on new and I've opened data. Go to open, click on data, and this will show up. And the first thing to do is to change the file type. It helps you to filter where you have the data. So I'm going to change the file type to Excel, and my data is currently in download. So download is selected here. So I'm going to just scroll, and as you can see, look at the file I'm looking for. Okay, demo SPSS. So this is it. I'm just going to, I just closed it by mistake. So click on it, change it to Excel and demo SPSS. So there's nothing else to do other than to click the open button. So when you click open, it will bring up this, and I want you to pay attention to this. First, it says read variable names from the first row of data. The question is that what you want to do? Yes, I want to read that. Then for the worksheet, Okay, you know, Excel is into several sheets. A workbook is a combination of several sheets. Okay, but this particular Excel has just a singular sheet where the data is. So, but if you are working with an Excel file or Excel workbook that has several sheets, be careful that you are choosing the right sheet from the Excel. So if you click on my own, it's just one. So, but if I have several sheets, you see all the sheet here. Ensure you select the right one and you are good to go. So there's nothing much I need to do. I just need to click OK and this will load up. Now, can you see what has happened? I'm coming. I think there's a question, but I'm coming. Now, in Excel, the column names or the variables had spaces between them, if you recall. The column names or the variables had spaces between them. But right here in SPSS, as soon as we imported the data, those spaces are closed up by default. SPSS does this for you. It enforces the syntax rule on the data when you import it. So if you go to variable view now, you see all the columns that you have here. That's it here, right? So I'm going to walk you through how to, format and get this data ready for analysis, and maybe you can round off for tonight. So let me take a few questions and then we can continue. Yes? What's the question? Question, please. Kindly unmute and go ahead.
Okay, thank you for this wonderful presentation. My question here is when exporting it,
Important.
when importing it, where it shows worksheet, as you said, worksheet might contain several sheets on it. So we should be careful when selecting it. So what if the sheets on a workbook or on a worksheet are named? Maybe
Oh, awesome.
sheet one, yeah, sheet one has its name, the next sheet has its name, like that, like that. We're going to see the name so that we select the right sheet we want to select.
Excellent question. Thank you. So kindly mute. So yeah, if you have a that contains several sheets and the sheets are rightly named, that makes your work easier. So you can quickly identify which worksheet you want to work with in SPSS. So all you need to do is just select that particular sheet and then you are good to go. But if, for instance, they have that default name of sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, and you've maybe forgotten which particular sheet either your supervisor or your manager or whoever, or maybe you're even the one that did the entire data entry, or you don't know what you just need to go back to Excel, again, identify which sheet you want to work with from that particular workbook, select it, and you'll be, you understand? It's not a problem. Okay, so thank you for that question. Now that we have the data imported, the first thing I like to do again is to save my data. If you look up, currently it is not saved. Okay, so it's not saved. But I may not save it because of time. Let me just quickly walk us through. So you can see you can expand the name. Let's say it is like this, and you want to see everything there. All right. So you can expand it, and family type, you can see everything by default. It's numeric, but not everything should be numeric. In fact, none of them is numeric, actually. Everything in this data set, based on the questionnaire, should be string. This is string, 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 string. But you might wonder, so Mr. Chris, why do we have it as numeric by default? Now, why we have it as numeric by default, if you relate, is because we coded it as numbers. Are you get it as numbers? So we have the data type as numeric. It is now your responsibility to change each of them to string. Okay, so you have to change them to string. Now somebody might ask, is there a shortcut to just change everything? I haven't found a shortcut yet, but if any of you on this call has a shortcut, but actually both in the new latest version, there are no shortcuts to that, so you have to do that. And moreover, most times your column name may not be, I mean, they are not even so much. 20, 30 columns is even too much. But sometimes it can span into even up to 50. All right. Then for this, decimal is all 0. And this one, it should also be all 0 as well. Okay. So, but the most important part where I just want to walk us through is, apart from label, like I said, in label, you give an extensive description of what each column represents. For instance, instead of leaving this as child sex, you can say gender of the respondent, right? Position of the respondents in their family, religion of the respondents, the ethnic group or ethnicity of the respondent. So you make it really descriptive. It will help you much later. All right. So it is good you do that. Does that make sense? Okay. So the next thing we need to do, which is very important, because if you look now, I'm only seeing numbers, like just numbers. Okay. So because of that, we need to define each of them. I'm going to skip the facility type because we don't have all the time to start typing all of this. But you can make it easier, which I'm going to show you. Part of what you have to learn from these sessions is a way of working with SPSS or extracting more value from SPSS. So what I do sometimes is, for instance, in this healthcare facility, I just come, copy it, instead of having to type it, just copy the name. Remember that A is 1. So I'll use my Alt tab to switch between windows like this. Okay. I'll use my Alt tab to switch between windows. So I'll come here and then I'll come to under value. Okay. So I'll click on, let me close it and click it again. You see these 3 dots when it shows none, click on it. It will bring up this. Now, value is the particular number. So the first one is 1. I coded it as 1. What is the value? The value is University of Nigeria Institute of Health of Child Health. I'll click on add. So it's been added. Then I'll go to the next one, 2. And 2, it's UNN Medical Center. So I'll come here, I'll paste 2 instead of having to type it. So it saves you time. And as much as possible, you need to learn how to save time in your data or analysis research. I mean, research analysis. So Polyclinic Enugu is the 3rd one. So I'm going to come here, paste it, and I won't finish everything. You are getting the hang of what it is. Or let's quickly just do everything. And you see, each of them has Enugu. You can exclude that. This is 4, and click on add, and then you go again. The Eastern Nigeria Health Medical Center. Just pick this. This is 5. Paste, add. There are shortcuts to this, but let's just keep it at this. One Health Center in Enugu. This will be 6, and we'll add it. And Nsukka Health Center will be 7, and we add it. Okay. And then the next is Ogui New Layout. This maybe this question here, I might send it in the group just so that you can practice. That will be fine, right? So paste this add, and then click OK. So we've been able to do that. If you go to okay, let me see something. The data is not reflecting. Okay. Let me see. It's not reflecting. So whenever you have a case like this, I'm coming. Whenever you have a case like this, it's usually during the import that you experience this kind of issue. So what we can do to solve it, okay, what we can do to solve it. Now, what I wanted to show you is when you come to your data view and it's still showing number, after that, you have entered the values here. The way to show the actual value is to click on this icon. If you hover on it, it says value labels. So, but this one, it's not showing. And that tells you that something is fundamentally wrong somewhere. Okay, so let me take question and then I will fix that for us. What zero? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so from the label column, you said if we want to if you want to type anything on the label column, we should not leave a space. We should always use underscore. And I can see from the label angle, label column, there is no underscore there. There is a space.
Lab
Why is it so?
label
Yeah, from the data variables.
data variables. Oh, you mean the variable view here?
Yes.
Okay. No. When it comes to the label, you can allow spaces and you can type as many characters you want, so long as under 255
55.
characters.
Okay.
Do you understand? So
Yes.
only, the only place where the rule applies, kindly mute, where the rule applies is the name. Okay, this is where the rule applies, that you don't have to create any space. It's either you type it in this format, it's appearing now, which is with no space, and then you capitalize each word, the first letter of each word, or you use underscore to separate them. Okay, let me take another question. Ayo, please go ahead.
All right, thank you very much for your time. I just have this question about these values that you just teach us now.
Yeah,
All the
this one.
values, yes, all the values we add is still under the facility type.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to get the concept.
Oh,
Is still describing the facility type, or
yes, it's the data we collected for facility type. For instance, the facility type, okay, is it facility type? Okay. Thank you so much for pointing it out. I think I thought that the data I sent us, which is this demo, okay, Thank you so much. I think that really points out what we are getting wrong. The facility type is for this 1, 2, 3, and 4. Thank you so much. Are you all right for pointing out that I was working with this healthcare facility in mind? Okay, I was working with that in mind. So if we make those changes back to private, so let's quickly make that change. So this is how you can make the edit. I think with Ayo's question, I can teach us something more. So let's say, for instance, you realize that you made a mistake in entering the value, just like we made this mistake. I might even forget teaching you this, if not that we actually made a mistake. So you can remove by just highlighting and then remove, highlight, remove, highlight, remove, highlight, remove. So we have 4 facility types. So if I click on the first one and change it, just highlight Control A, private and click change. You see, number 1 has been changed to private. Number 2, it's, I think, secondary or tertiary. So tertiary. So we click highlight and then change it to tertiary. This, change it to secondary. Okay, and click on change. And then this one, it's going to be primary. Okay, so this will be primary, and we click on change and then click OK. So right now, we've changed the facility type. We've coded it to the actual value, not the name of the health facility. Okay, but we are still having the issue of the data not showing itself here. Let me see where that problem could be coming from. No, nominal. So sometimes you run into these errors. Let's see. So what we can actually do to fix it, when something like this happens, and that is why when you are entering your data, it's often good to check with this value label to be sure that the values are reflecting as you are entering them. I've removed the decimal points. Okay. And it's still showing. Let me check something. Let me see. Okay. So right now, I've taken it back and you can see it's working. The reason you are seeing tertiary all through is because we just had 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2 was tertiary. So for age, let's do the same. Now we will need to leave this as numeric because we coded the value as numeric and we're only changing it here. So for age, I think 1 represents 0 to 4 weeks. Okay. 2 represents 5 to 8 weeks. And 3 represents 9 to 12 weeks. Okay. And just click OK. So when you come here, you should see it reflect. So you see all these places were areas where the respondent did not give an answer to this. So the person, the respondent that filled questionnaire 53 did not fill anything for the age of the child because this was collected from their parents. Okay. Then you can do the same for gender. 1 for male and 2 for female. So you go to gender and do the same thing. 1 for male and 2 for female. No, 0 for female. Okay, so we had 1 for male and 0 for female. Okay, so if we go back to this and we check, so we have male and female showing. I think this is getting clearer, right? Then for the child position, if you go to your questionnaire, you find that we have first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. You can do the same thing. So, but basically, I would have loved us to enter everything. So, like I said, I'm going to share this questionnaire in the group so that you can enter all of this data. The first thing we are going to do tomorrow when we come, right? The first thing we are going to do will be to run through descriptive statistics. First, I will help you understand what a descriptive statistics is. And then next, we're going to learn some key inferential statistics, things like correlation. We might touch on chi-square, ANOVA, and so today we more like got ourselves familiar with the interface. Now tomorrow, if we have time, we can look at how do you clean your data. Now, this one was just from a questionnaire. There are times you get data from the field. And it's not just that it's a questionnaire. All these areas that the respondent did not fill, how do you handle missing values? How do you handle outliers? Outliers are values that are extremely high or extremely low from the range. So outliers are when a value is out of the range, we say it is an outlier. For instance, excuse me, if we are collecting the age of primary school children, and among the data points for age, we are seeing 35 years old, or we are seeing 2 years old, 40 years old. That cannot be the age of a primary school child. 2 cannot be the age of a primary school child. Neither can 40 be the age of a primary school child. So in that case, it raises an alarm for you to do something about it, or to know that there's an anomaly in your data that needs to be fixed. Or in a case where you have, blanks like this, there's also a way to handle it. Or sometimes you could get a data that has dates, or that you need to split a particular column into two. We'll look at several data cleaning techniques and even ways you can transform your data more effectively. So because I had already promised I don't want to take us far beyond this time, I'll just spend a few more minutes to answer our question and possibly hear our response as to tonight's section. So let me hear from us. If you have any question, I'll listen. Sorry, your hand has been up. Is that for a question or contribution?
I have a question, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, I didn't get your explanation on how to import the data. I was trying to download it, so I didn't get your explanation. Then
Okay.
secondly, you can I go on, sir?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Secondly, you explained that in the section of label, that's where you actually like describe your this thing extensively. Then there was a
Yes.
different place you said you actually abbreviate it, but I didn't get what you were talking about.
Okay. So I'll touch on the aspect of labeling and all that. Then we'll look at how to import just one more time. So I told you that in SPSS you have two views: the data view, where you enter the actual data, and the variable view, where you define the variable or what will serve as the column names. Now, when you come to the variable view, you have several columns. The first and most important column here is the name column. So this is where you define the name. And I said in defining the names of your variable, you cannot have spaces when the name of your variable is more than one word. If it is more than one word, you can't have spaces. There are two ways to go about working with a variable name when you have more than one word. One way is, as you can see on the screen, you capitalize the first letter of each word. So in the case of facility type, rather than typing facility, then a space type, you can capitalize the first character of each word. So you can see F is capitalized and T is capitalized. Now, but this particular one you are seeing on the screen was done by default because we imported this particular data. But if you are to enter it yourself, the same rule is to be abided with, right? Or abided by, rather. Then another thing is, if you want to create space, for instance, I can decide to rename this as facility type. So I'm using everything as lowercase, but now I want to separate the facility from the type. So I'm using underscore to separate them. That is the syntax. The syntax is simply the rule that governs how names or instructions are written in a given tool. In this case, SPSS. All right. Then you have the type column where you define the type of the variable. Every variable has a type, or every data you are collecting has a type. It can either be numbers or text or decimal point. Like when I mean numbers, it can either be whole numbers or fractional numbers like decimal points. And SPSS accommodates different variable types. So you can see numeric, you can see dots, you can see, and several of them here. Okay, strings, dates, scientific notation. You may not have anything to do with dot, comma, and scientific notation, dollar, and all this. But for string and numeric, it will always be there. For numeric, if the data you collected is something that, let's say, for instance, you are looking at height. Somebody's height can be 15.5. So it means that you can allow it to have decimal points. But if it's something that must be whole number, like age cannot be 27.8 years old. So it has to be whole number. So the decimal column for the decimal for that particular row or for that particular column must be 0. Width is defines how many characters can be allowed in that column. Let me give you an instance. Now we have facility here. And if I reduce the width of this facility to something like 5, please watch and see what happens. If I reduce it to something like 5, let's come here. It's not reflecting. Normally, it should reflect. Let me see somewhere here. 5. Okay, no. This one is the width of the column, but here defines the normally. Maybe because I imported the data, it should cut off some part here. That's basically what happens. It cuts off that part and reduces the number of characters to 5 characters. And then I've talked about decimal here. Then your label is an ideal place to define in a broader sense what each column represents. So instead of saying facility type, make it more descriptive. Okay, the healthcare facility types, something like that. Instead of saying age or child age, you can say the age of the children or the age of the respondent in weeks, because that's how we want it to be. The age of the respondent, in this case, child, in weeks. That's what you do here. And like I said, the label column allows you to have up to 255 characters. Then for values, this is where you define what each numeric representation here is. For instance, child position we have it here in the questionnaire as, where is it? As first, second, third, fourth, and fifth child. So, and we coded it as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So within the value column, this is where we now define what each one represents. So 1 here is going to be first. Okay. 2 is going to be second. I believe you are getting the point. And then, that continues to the last one. Then missing is if you are having a missing value. Okay, so you can indicate how many missing value, but we are going to touch on this. Like I said before, I just decided to look away from this until tomorrow. So we have a whole lot to do tomorrow. We start on time and we hope to be a bit faster than we were today. All right. So if you still have questions, kindly go ahead. Want to be sure everybody is carried along tonight. So Alison, does that really answer your question? Then for the importing, the way to import is to go to File, okay, then look at this open option here and click on data. When you click on data, this opens up. Now, depending on the file format, there are several file types that SPSS support. Number one is SPSS. The other one is SPSS/PC Plus, and several others. But the most common file type you might see is Excel. Okay, and Excel can either be Excel or CSV. It will still support it. And if you have a file in CSV, you can convert it to Excel just to make it easier for you. All right. So you just select the file type and go to the location where you have the file. Let's say you have it in your desktop. Then search for the file name, choose it, and then you open it. It will just open in SPSS. So that is how you import your file. You can as well watch the recordings after tonight's class just to be able to follow along. So I'll listen on mute and let me know if that answers your question.
Yes, very perfectly. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. So Ayo, I don't know if your hand is raised for question. Kindly go ahead. We are rounding off. So please, those of
Yeah,
us that have, please go ahead if you have any question.
yeah, thank you so much. I just want to appreciate you for the time you take out to just explain these things to us. I really appreciate your time. Then my question, just two questions. Number one is for the assignment, can you help us to with the codes too of